get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat.
We have a
This is so awesome.
are an open culture that
It's actually a big piece of
What is that process that a developer, or let's say,
as the Kubernetes ecosystem really boomed.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am Jonny Rickard. I am the co-host of the Ask an OpenShift Expert livestream. Sully is not with us again this week because he is probably one of the busiest dudes at Red Hat right now. He's getting ready for Summit, and he's been the fortunate recipient of some last-minute topics that he's going to go present while he's at Summit. So, success is rewarded with more work, unfortunately, sometimes. So. He's still a part of the live stream. I promise he will be back. We do miss him, and looking forward to getting him back when Summit finally takes a break. But in his place, we have your name's Steven Nemo, but you go by Nemo, right?
Yeah.
All right. So do you want to do a quick intro real quick?
Yeah. So Steven Nemo, I am an OpenShift specialist, solution architect. I'm celebrating my 6th year anniversary as a Red Hatter as of Monday. So yeah, that's great. It's always a good reminder, like when you have an anniversary, to kind of look back at your time, and you're like, I still feel like I have so much to do here, and there's so much to learn. And there's so many customers I want to help with all of this stuff. So even after 6 years, I'm pretty darn excited here. I was a pandemic hire, right? So I tell people I was a pandemic baby. I got my Fedora, in a FedEx box, along with my laptop and stuff like that. But Quarkus was what actually brought me to Red Hat. I've been a part of the Houston Java Users Group. We'll get into this in a minute, right, from my development background, but I was a Java developer for most of my career. And as part of the Houston Java Users Group, I had some Red Hatters there, and I was getting into Quarkus myself because I was doing some Spring Boot stuff. Reached out to a Red Hatter that I knew, asked him some questions. We hadn't talked in a while. And he was like, "Hey, why don't you go work for Red Hat?" And I was like, "Yes." So shout out John Archer. Thanks for the invite. And it's been a fun ride since.
That's awesome. John Archer's a good dude. I met him a couple of years ago. I think when I wish I could remember what project he was working on, and I think it might have been when I first came over to engineering. I'd met him. He's a really good guy. Welcome and congratulations on 6 years. That's an awesome achievement. So. Glad to hear it.
Yeah,
cool.
It's been fun. It's been fun, and it's the great thing is the wide variety of stuff I've gotten to work on. So I have we'll talk about this more. Like I have a deep development background since hitting the ground with Red Hat. Right, I've had to get really heavily entrenched in the sysadmin ways of the world, the operational aspects, and that deep dive, and it's been a fun journey along the way. But today we're going to be talking about something near and dear to my heart, which is developer efficiencies, running development teams, organizational behavior. So we'll talk about the software supply chain. We'll talk about what good looks like, but we're going to talk a lot about what makes teams great, and how teams and organizations use these tools in combination with their organizational behaviors to create new levels of value, new levels of efficiency, and most importantly, new levels of happiness, right? We're going to be a little touchy-feely today. I am one of those developers that really believes happy developers are productive developers. So we'll go from there.
Nice. Well, before we get going too far, I just wanted to, the schedule coming up, it's a little kind of in the air. So next week, I think we're trying to find a guest, or we're going to find a topic. But the week after the 29th is when we're going to have Peter Kreuzer come on, and they're going to do an ACS user experience stuff. So if you've seen the Peter Kreuzer team come on and do anything with the virtualization user experience stuff, it's going to be the same idea, but with ACS, because they're making a lot of improvements to the UI, and it's going to be really great. And then leading into May, we're also trying to find some more guests, but then we also have Red Hat Summit, which is the week of the 13th. So we will not be streaming that week. But yeah, with that, just one thing to keep in mind, I keep forgetting to do this every time, is the Asking OpenShift Expert live stream is part of the Red Hat Office Hours live stream series, right? So the idea is that people like myself, Sully, Nemo, we're here to answer your questions. So it can be on topic, it can be about OpenShift, Kubernetes, it could be about Red Hat, it could be about RHEL, whatever you want to talk about. We're here to answer questions. They don't always have to be on topic. Obviously, we have Nemo here to talk about the Red Hat. Is it Red Hat Advanced Developer? That's what it is, right? It's Advanced Developer.
Yeah, the Advanced Developer Suite.
Yeah, the Red Hat Advanced Developer Suite. So if you have questions on topic, obviously this is the perfect time to ask them. If you don't feel comfortable asking the questions in chat, which right now I'm noticing that Restream chat is kind of acting wonky, like the plugin looks broken. So I'm logged into Twitch and YouTube. I'm going to try and answer that way. But if I don't get to your question, feel free to reach out to me. I'm JONNY at redhat.com, and Sully is going to be SULLY at redhat.com. And if it's on topic, and Nemo, if you don't mind, can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm Nemo. I'm Nemo at redhat.com. That's one of the things. It keeps it simple.
I love it. You can tell all the old guys because we all have the cool email aliases. So, but yeah. So with that said, let's kick it off to you. Let's get going.
Awesome. Cool. So we're gonna do a little slideware, right? It wouldn't be a live stream or a presentation without dropping some slides. So we'll get those kind of pulled up, and we'll start talking about secure software supply chain. There we go. Right. So we're gonna get talking about the Red Hat Advanced Developer Suite. I'm kind of famous for taking my Red Hat hat off. I can very quickly, start having conversations as a general technologist. I kind of have a deep background here, right? So before coming to Red Hat, I was an app dev guy. I spent most of my career doing custom app dev. With a decade of that in consulting. So, my little tagline I tell everybody is, I've pushed code at like a dozen different Fortune 100 companies. Some good, some great experiences, some not so great experiences, right? But everything's made me a better developer, a better technologist, right? And has gotten me to kind of where I am here. We're also going to talk a little bit about what the role of the developer is. We're going to start talking about shifting left here in a minute. But more than anything else, if you take a look here, I also have some deep domain background. So in commodities trading, I live in Houston, right? So energy is all around H-Town. So I'm all about it. But I have an MBA as well in energy trading and risk management. So spent quite a few years in and around the trading shops and things like that. So if I'll throw some trading parlance out there too. So hope y'all enjoy that. One of my more fun projects was in financial services. I'm an ex-JP Morgan guy, and one of the teams that I worked on there was the low latency trading infrastructure team. So we were running infrastructure down in the single digit microsecond level, which is kind of like, it's the weirdest thing because it's Schrodinger's cat of observability. Simply by observing it, you can't observe it at that low level, right? It's completely crazy, so hard to debug. But it is a fun environment and things like that. And of course, JPMC is a huge company with lots going on. So, but yeah, so that's my background. Also, you'll see I got a bunch of DevOps stuff on there. I'm going to be dropping names throughout because, when I was coming up in the game and becoming, a better technologist, back then it was all about DevOps, right? So I was reading the Goal, I was reading Gold Rad, I was reading the Phoenix Project with Gene Kim and Kevin Baer and George Spafford, and I was listening to DevOps Cafe podcast with, John Willis and Damon Edwards and, all of this stuff. So like most of my things that I talk about are really driven from that DevOps, DevSecOps mentality of how to create value through automation, how to break down silos, how to identify bottlenecks, right? The theory of constraints is something I talk about a lot with my teams and things like that. So yeah, that's the old background. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about some current environment and the need for platform engineering. We're going to get into some of the advanced developer suite stuff. We're going to look at the components and the use cases. I'll throw a call to action at the end. We'll have a demo in the middle too. So we'll go from there. But more than anything else, let's talk about kind of where we're at, right? I don't know if people have seen this slide. The screen share seems to be doing something wrong.
Yeah, it does not like the animation there.
Oh, it does not like the animation. Anyway, so there's this thing balancing in between security and innovation. But really, the one I like to look at is like that balance between technical toil and business value, right? Because the challenges are definitely in front of us, right? From a modernization standpoint, there's tons and tons of legacy, software that's running out there. Those old J2EE servers are still running out there. There's COBOL code that's out there. Like, there's tons of things that need to get modernized. But that's on top of all this new work that's coming in, right? With all this generative AI and all these new type of opportunities are also coming into play. So there's so much going on as a technologist nowadays. It's really hard to kind of keep a hold of everything. And that's why that developer productivity, the second one really kind of hits so hard is the cognitive load on development teams is so high right now because they're having to take care of all of this stuff. And it's a lot of it is also the shift left mentality that's been going on for the few years last week. And I'm here to tell you, let's stop shifting left. the left has enough stuff on our plate. Let's start shifting down into the platform, and that's where the platform engineering comes into play.
Yeah, real quick before you move on, the slide that you had with the animation, with the balancing act, but you don't have to go back to it so that way we won't give anybody a stroke. But like, I think that it's so simple, but it means a lot, right? Because it is a balancing act. Like, it's one thing that, like, there's another person on the, I wish I knew where he worked, but his name is Uth. I did a presentation with him in Amsterdam. And like, the one thing that we were talking about is like, for me as an infrastructure person, it's important that we do all the security things like you're just saying, right? Shift down instead of shifting left. Like, it's important that we secure our environments and our infrastructure, but still make your job and your life easy, right? And make sure that you can still do the things that you need to do. And like, we all want to be secure. None of us want to be in the news. None of us want to be, like an example or anything like that. But at the same time, we can't, to achieve that, it would make your life miserable. And so it's a balancing act, and it's a balancing act when you have leadership involved. They're making decisions when they don't understand the technologies. And yeah, it's crazy. But I love this slide. It's actually, I stole it from Natal. And if he stole it from you, then I stole it from you.
No, I stole it from somebody too. So I created the one really because of the business value. Technical toil is kind of where it's at, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll tell this, developers, if you're out there, if you have a leadership line, right? And I'm talking, that directors, SVP level, even C level, CIO, CTO, right? If you have a level where those people are really truly empathetic and understanding of all of the things that are on your plate and your team's plate and all of this stuff, you're very lucky, right? There's a lot of great organizations out there that where you have empathy up multiple levels. There's a lot of organizations where that's not the case. There's a lot of organizations that don't understand the complications of Git merges. There's a lot of, where leadership doesn't really care about unit tests. They care about the feature is out in production because they promised a client that 3 months ago that it was going to be out on May 1st and it's April 15th. And where the heck is it? Because we still have to test it and approve it. Right? There's a lot of things that are going on in in the space, right? And a lot of the times it's just the visibility. That cognitive load is so high because there's so much both unplanned and invisible work that's having to be undertaken by these teams just to be able to get these products off the shelf. So this next slide kind of has some that duplicated innovation, 76%, say the cognitive load is so high, right? That 52 minutes of average time spent of developers coding each day, it's absolutely wickedly small. Like we talk about, I was a Scrum Master for a long time. I was also a product owner too at one point in my career for several years. I was an agile coach in my consulting career, so I played all of the roles in a couple different organizations and things like that. And I know that when I would be looking at the throughput of my teams, there's a lot of the times where I'm walking in and I'm like, hey, you got these guys stuck in meetings for 5 hours a day, 4 hours a day. They're really only going to have 3 hours of productive time. And when you start adding in the fact that the 3 hours of productive time is from 8:30 to 9:30, from 12:30 to 1:30, and then from 3:30 to 4:30, right? It's completely split up. It's amazing that anything gets into production nowadays with everything that's going on. And combine that with the security posture, right? We always need more security. I'm going to be banging on the security table all day long today as well, right? We need security. We need all of these tools that are coming across. We need to get better at this as an industry. We need to get better at this personally as a developer, right? You can always add more layers. You can always get better. But this is all, a lot of the times it's unplanned, unscheduled work. As a product owner, like kind of putting on my product owner hat, right? I'm running a backlog. I'm on the hook for the rest of the year. Like, hey, product owners out there, I get you, right? Hey, I'm on the hook for deliverables for December. My bonuses are going to be tied to that. My promotion status is going to be tied to whether or not I deliver these deliverables. The last thing I want in the world is to have tertiary teams walking in and throwing hand grenades of unplanned, unscheduled, and unknown work, to be honest with you, into development teams to add to their backlog. It's a difficult place.
Yeah, 52 minutes seems awfully low. That just seems
It is.
bananas.
It is. Yeah, but there was times when I was running my teams where it's like, hey, 3 hours is a good day, and there's not much you can do about it. But like the shifting left story, right? The story is really about developer overload, because I really want to talk about the actual business over here, right? You see that first line, the actual business. When I was in building integration software for large, multinational, global oil trading organizations and things like that. And we're connecting in, 4, 5, 6 different energy trading risk management systems, all to themselves and to the global positions and to all the exchanges and things like that. Just simply understanding that business is a full-time job. it is a full-time job for these guys, right? So I completely understand that when you just look at, hey, I have to understand all of these different flows, all these different calculations. That's that. But I still have to be a Java expert. I still have to be able to go through and understand, the threading models and the JVM, or memory management in JVM, and all of the different jumps from Java 8, Java 1.8 to Java 11 to 17 to 25, right? All of those things I have to keep up with, all the different build tools and interfaces and Open API and Kafka protocols, and hey, I still got to write queries too, right? I'm going in and I'm having to be an expert in Postgres or whatever the database du jour is. And I still have to memorize and know all the software delivery processes. And these are like, hey, I got to know how to run Agile and do Scrum stuff, but I also need to know how my company implements Agile in a safe manner, right? In operational processes, right? So I'm still on the hook. I still got that pager, once every 2 weeks or once every 3 weeks where I'm on call and things like that. But a lot of the other stuff too is the other stuff that ends up on my plate, right? Sometimes I'm stuck. I got a Windows laptop and I'm developing for a Linux runtime, right? So now I'm having to manage multiple differences in environments. I have to understand Kubernetes really well. I need GitOps. Every tool in the chain I have to have, intimate knowledge of and things like that. What's salsa? Like, okay, now I have 14 other things that I have to learn on top of cryptography, networking, and certificates. This is too much, right? And I think this is where our industry really kind of needs to hit that ground of really getting back to what is platform engineering, right? Because a lot of the times, right, these things are already being done, right? When we start talking about platform engineering, the platform engineering experience, that unified experience that we're all kind of talking about when we say, let's build a platform, let's build tools that are homogeneous throughout. Let's have everybody, have to, reuse pipelines, reuse infrastructure, reuse patterns, all of these things. It's all about creating economies of scale, because right now, what most people don't understand, and I, like I said, I've worked in organizations where there's, 30,000 developers, right? When you start talking about that many teams, if you have 100 teams and you don't have a platform engineering, or you don't have a platform as a product mentality, you're still doing the work. You're just doing it 100 different ways, right? So it's not like it's not happening. It's that it's happening, and you have, 40 different application teams out there, all doing the exact same types of things, but they're all doing them slightly differently, and they're all having to maintain it, and they're all having, so it's a ton of wasted work, right? So really, when we start talking about platform engineering, it's about homogenization. It's about getting all of these teams together and saying, what is the best way for us to move forward and share work? And how do we offload these things out of our development cycles and into the platform, right? One from the previous one here, certificates, right? Like, certificates are a solved problem with OpenShift, in particular with Cert Manager. If you're not familiar with Cert Manager as a product, actually there's an OpenShift, Ask the OpenShift Expert, episode number 137. Ashley did a wonderful job. Go check that out if you're curious about certificate management and all the intricacies there. But those are things that can be automated away and really pulled out of all of these teams. So instead of having 40 teams and 40 people out there having to go through and manage these types of things, you can consolidate that into a set of automated processes that are managed by a smaller platform team. And, that creates a lot of value real fast. Along with this from a development team, so when we start talking about platform engineering is about these characteristics, right? So it's self-service, right? If I'm a developer, the last thing in the world that I want is to have to go submit a ticket and wait 2 weeks for me to get a virtual machine or a runtime environment or a namespace or something like that, right? So part of this effort is like, how do we make those things, how do we eliminate friction from those things, right? The second thing is, how do you automate these things? We want infrastructure as code. We want to be able to not only restore, right, when there's a disaster recovery event or something like that. We want to be able to restore, but we also want to be able to repave, right? We want to be able to build clusters and treat them not like cattle anymore, because the old one used to be like a cattle, not pets. I don't know about you, cattle are expensive. I named my cattle. Let's go with ants, right? I want to start treating these things like ants, not pets, because really I don't want to care about them. I want to be able to create a cluster. I want to be able to throw away a cluster, right? They're just ephemeral things that we can build. The release pipeline, secure and consistent. The golden paths, right, from a developer experience. How do we make the Quarkus, Maven, Java developer literally not have to do anything except for Java development, right? And using Quarkus, using the Quarkus tools, which we'll talk about. And then the continuous improvement. Like, it's also like, how do we do day one implementations, but also how do we continue, with day two operations here? And again, going back to this, when you start looking at this slide, if there's any leadership on the call, listening to this or watching the recording later on, the immediate thing that you have in your head is like, this sounds expensive. You're already paying these tolls. You're already doing this. So like, you're doing it, but you're doing it in inefficient ways. You're repeating the work across. If you have 40 development teams, you may be doing it 20 different ways and 20 different times. So you're already paying all of the taxes. You're just not getting any benefits from the shared services, right? And then you're doing all of these things anyway. You might as well bring them all together in a way. And it doesn't mean like you necessarily like, oh, I have to go hire 5 net new people. It could be as simple as, hey, let's get all the Java development teams together and have them all contribute from an inner sourcing standpoint into the same repos for shared services around tool chains for Java development, that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be a really huge effort. Last one I'll leave us with here too is what we're talking about today is not container management, right? So we got the Gartner quadrants up here, and I really like especially these side by side, right? So if you look on the left, it's the magic quadrant for container management. When you think container management, that's like the table stakes, right? The Kubernetes platform, the tools that are built on, just built around container management, building, deploying, maintaining that basic blocking and tackling, right? Obviously you can look in there and you can see there's a lot of contenders in there. Red Hat's always up in the top right. We seem to be pretty consistent there. From an analyst point of view, I feel like OpenShift honestly is the best place to go especially from an on-prem standpoint, but from a hybrid cloud story. I think Red Hat from a container management standpoint is definitely the top of the pyramid. That being said, hey, I work for Red Hat, so I am biased. But the one thing that I do want to point out here is when we start talking about container management versus application platforms, right? I need a platform that's not only going to, run some containers for me or do some Kubernetes stuff, but I want it to build. I want to run security. I want to be able to do multi-cluster management. I want to be able to do consolidated observability. I want to be able to do all of those things, log management at scale. I want to be able to do application performance metrics. I want all of those things. That's the application platform. I want to be able to run these pipelines and be able to do secure, trusted software supply chain actions. That's what that quadrant on the right is about. And you'll notice not all the names from the left are on the right. And there's a reason for that, is because Red Hat is an application platform that's designed to deliver a higher value to the organization, because we have all this stuff built in. When you go and get OpenShift, and especially the advanced developer suite as part of your OpenShift development, it becomes your single point for all of your development lifecycle, all of your dev tools, and it gives you a way to create homogeneity across all your platforms. If you do it with somebody else, you're going to be rebuilding your platform. And if you're an energy trading organization, if you're a retail organization, if you're a travel organization, right? Your job is not to build platforms. Your job is to build features that your customers want, and your customers don't want the best platform. They want the business value, right? So really, it's kind of a no-brainer that you want to kind of go to that ecosystem that's going to provide all that value for you.
Yeah, I think OpenShift gives you the best, like, out of the box. Like, once you get past all the installation things and stuff like that, right? Like, it is probably the one platform that is just, okay, I'm absolutely ready to go right now to do whichever way you want to go, whichever direction you want to go, if it be it vert, be it multi-cluster management, like you were saying with the secure software supply chain stuff. Like, whichever way you want to go, like it is ready for you to do your thing. And it can be heavy sometimes, but I think like the maturity of OpenShift, especially now with things like hosted control planes, which have been an accelerator for getting your clusters up faster. If you're doing like a lot of like local development, there's like the OpenShift local, or what do they used to call it, mini shift or something like that. Anyways, OpenShift local is like the local on your laptop, you can run it. And then microshift, right? Which is like it's not K3s, but it's K3s-esque, right? It's a very small, binary led type of.
It's like K1S. I always laugh because it's running on a single rel node, but yeah. There's lots of footprints out there to tackle all this stuff.
Yeah, but like ultimately, it's one of those things where it's like whichever flavor you choose, you can move from one to the other. And the good part too is if you go to Kubernetes, like raw native Kubernetes, right? OpenShift is Kubernetes, so you can take your manifest and you can go from one to another. Obviously, if you have something that's on the OpenShift API, it's not going to run on Kubernetes unless you've exposed it somehow. But like that'll be the difference, right? But like ingress routes, all those things, there's an upstream primitive for pretty much every OpenShift API thing, So like routes specifically, but yeah. Anyways, I'm just saying it's easy to go back and forth if you needed to, or to move across if you had the vanilla Kubernetes.
It is. Okay, let's talk about RADs real quick, and then I'm tired of the slides already. Let's talk about this, and then let's get into the product. Right, so the RADs kind of sits on top of OpenShift container platform. So you'll see some of those foundation application platform capabilities with server mesh and pipelines and builds and GitOps and all of that. ADS is kind of sitting up here, and it's that extra set of developer tools, the internal development portal. So that's the IDP. That's Red Hat Developer Hub. The secure software delivery, that's all those ancillary tools. We're going to get into those, but that's where it sits, right? And this is what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to bring everything together for you as a product, right? Because a lot of people, they don't want to have to put all of this stuff together They don't want to make sure it all works together. They don't want to have to go through the toil of doing, a platform engineering of bringing all these things together. That's where ADS comes in, and they'll be able to come in kind of on that day one and start delivering value in terms of taking your organization to that next level and building the tools you need. The Advanced Developer Suite combines everything together, but it's a combination of everything. It's with DevHub as that front end, the trusted profile analyzer, the trusted artifact signer, right? And if you want to get into all those stuff, we're not going to talk about that today. It's already been talked about. Episode number 117, Jafar did a great job with all the pipeline security, talking about SBOM generation and SigStore, which is the trusted artifact signer. And even trusted application supply chain, 169 and 166, both of those episodes. Veda, Joe, Stefano, they did a wonderful job talking about this. We're gonna start talking about how all this stuff is kind of put together and what that looks like. So here's the use cases. This is everything that comes into the suite: Developer Hub, all the trusted software supply chain, the AI enablement, the migration toolkits, which we're not going to talk about today. We could do a whole show on MTA, which is fantastic. Podman, all that other stuff. So so there it is. So and then we're also going to talk about Developer Hub and the software supply chain. So that's going to be into the demo. So let's go here. We're talking demo. The thing is freaking out on me again. I have another animation, so I'll know next time. Don't do animations.
Well, I had no idea it was going to do that. But Restream, I will say, is being a little funky right now. So it might not be you. It might just be Restream.
We'll blame it on Restream. Okay. Yeah. I love Restream as a product. So so let's get going here. And dev spaces, right? So that's the first thing that we're going to kind of jump into. We have a running OpenShift cluster here. Let's talk about dev spaces, because that's one of the things that I think, especially over the past year, shout out Chara Groover. He's done a ton of work, and the engineering team have done a ton of work to turn dev spaces into what I feel is a world-class platform for your IDE. Now I'm going to stop for a second. I am a Java developer. I love my IDE. I am an IDE junkie. I am not one of those people that says this stuff lightly in terms of, like, it is my bread and butter. I spend, when I was doing full all-time development, every minute of every day, my IDE was up and running. So keep in mind, over the past 2 years, I would say, maybe 3, but especially the last 2, the product has jumped leaps and bounds in terms of the way that it responds in the browser, the way that the plugins all work together, the way that you can plug in the ecosystem, the way that you can put constraints around it. So I'm going to be putting my dev hat on for a little bit, but I'm also going to be putting on my platform engineering hat because we want that balancing act to happen again, right? Because we want to be able to give our development teams all the tools they need to be productive and all those other things. But we also don't want the Wild West. We don't want them going to go grab every single tool from the internets and pulling everything in and going there. But if you're not familiar with dev spaces is a container-based integrated development environment that runs in the browser. And we'll just we'll get this thing started real quick. So we have this fictitious application, which is an insurance application. I'm going to open up this workspace, and it's going to open up the IDE for me real quick. And it's going to start looking really familiar to everybody, right? Because this is VS Code, right? It's backed by Che. If you're not familiar with the Eclipse Che project, that's all there. And the dev spaces themselves are really kind of built around It's going to start telling me what all these cool tools are. We'll just kind of close those as we go. But this is really kind of built around these dev files, right? And this dev file is that description. And it tells you noticed when it was kind of coming up, it was like reading your dev file from your workspace. This is where it's, this is where it gets all that information from about like, how do you build your development environments? And these things can be shared. And this is a great example. I really kind of want to talk about this for a second. If you'll notice, my dev file is really anemic and really just points to a parent dev file. So let's open that real quick. And we'll start taking a look at this, right? So this default dev file, right? This could easily have been named, Quarkus dev file because this is a Quarkus environment and things like that. But you'll notice some things. First of all, we could all share the same dev file. Like developer A, developer B, developer C, we're all in the same team. We're all doing things in a very similar way. We can all use the same dev file. So just right off the bat, you start looking at the ways of economies of scale where it's like, hey, you need a new Quarkus team or you need a new Quarkus app. This is the default dev file you should be using for that application. And it saves you all the problems of figuring out, how do I get, test containers set up? How do I make sure that the Podman socket is running on the Docker host, which I'll show you here in a second, which is pretty neat. This is a really interesting thing. So this UDI is the container that when you start a command line interface with it, that's the container that's used. We're using the UDI, which is the universal developer image, I believe it's companies extend off of this or they build their own, right? So if you want to include your own tool sets in here, if you want to include your own CLIs, you can bake your own image and apply it for your organization. And actually, if you're all using the same dev file, see that image tag over there, right? If you need to bump this from 3.26.1 to 3.26.2, hey, if we're all using the same dev file, it'll automatically be pulled in when we rebuild our workspace. So there's a lot of very transparent ways to be able to apply patching at the enterprise level, but have it be invisible to your development teams. Let me stop that, tell you that for a second, because that's a big thing that a lot of people don't really understand. Is like, it's fine to have templated stuff, but if you make 150 copies of the same template, and then all of a sudden you need to change that template, you're going to have to go to 150 different teams and do pull requests against 150 different repos to get them all to do a patch, like a Z patch version for a CDE. Like, that stuff starts to get really, really unmanageable, right? If you're pushing that down to all the teams. Every chance you can from a platform engineering standpoint, that you can find to consolidate this down into a single place where you can change it one time and everybody gets the benefits of that change, do it. Because that's going to provide, it's those little death by 1,000 paper cuts type of thing that help with all their work with the economies of scale. So rest of the dev file is fairly straightforward. It defines some endpoints where we want to start things up. And then we got some commands here. So we're able to go in and create commands that are just done by IDs. And then we can do some events. So, hey, after this starts up, let's initialize that Podman socket, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then we want to initialize our continue.dev. So, hey, let's go ahead and get that LLM plugged in over here. LLM, yep. So this one specifically, this environment has an LLM plugged in. I was talking to it earlier. I'm always nice to the LLMs. Always have to be nice to the LLMs. You don't know, is this Terminator? Like, is Skynet coming from this yet? So I'm always saying thank you. And please code this whole thing for me. You're looking nice today. I appreciate you. That kind of thing. But yeah, here's our continue. Tell me about my project. Right. This is pluggable. We're using one of our models for this. If you want to plug in your model du jour, you can plug it in. Right. So it's there. It's ready to go. It's built in. So here's where I'm going to like do both my hats. Cool. So from a developer standpoint, cool. I have a built-in agentic SDLC process that I can get through right now and start accelerating my development deliverables by infusing AI into my workflows. Fantastic. Now I'm going to put on the platform engineer and the organization's hat real quick and go, I can control my development teams and the AIs that they're using to consume, because there are a lot of organizations out there that are struggling to deliver consistent AI to their developers in a way that's consumable, but also is meeting all of the security constraints and requirements that they have on their side. Some organizations aren't as regulatory about things, right? And then there's other organizations where they have to be very strict about these things, right? I'm not even going to go so far as like the DODs and things like that, but like finance, finance companies and things like that have real regulatory issues. This is a big deal, and just being able to have these types of tools automatically plugged in, it goes a long way. And so the Podman and the continue setup. So that's the other interesting thing is like I started my terminal down here. That terminal is the bin bash for that container that I gave. It's got everything in there that I need. So I have my OC. I'm always typing bad. My OpenShift. I'm already connected into my cluster and I'm ready to go. Like I didn't even have to log in. I think kubectle's there too. Let's see. Yeah, so kubectle's there. What else is there? Maven's there, right? So I have that.
And there's different variants of the UDI, right? They have like UDI that are like very specific to different tools and stuff like that, right? Like it's kind of like the
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. 99% of the time, if you're doing this, and by the way, as I mentioned, I work in central enterprise, right? So from a sales perspective, I cover big companies. So a lot of times when I have these conversations, I'm an enterprise developer. I always have been. I've never done any startups or anything else like that. I've always worked for Fortune 100s. If you really kind of think about it, I think about it from their point of view of like, how do I do this at scale? So a lot of the time it's, hey, I'm gonna build my own tool images and I'm gonna plug in the things that I need to plug in. This is another great example though. So like, here's my OpenJDK that's installed, which is OpenJDK 17. This one's 2 major versions behind, right? But let's say we are using 17. This is an LTS version, so that's cool. But like developers and development teams shouldn't be deciding that they're using JDK 17.0.18. They should be saying, I'm using OpenJDK 17 and I shouldn't care about the Z patch, right? And I can manage that in those images. I can manage that at that platform level. And I can give the developers the tooling that they need, but I can also make sure that they're staying patched. I can make sure that their images are staying patched. So it's just this ebb and flow of innovation and developer productivity, but combined with the guardrails and security that's needed for them to be effective at their job. What else is here? This is the other cool thing. Podman's here. Hi. Podman is running inside of a container. So containers running inside containers, right? So that's fairly interesting. What else can you run there? So I think I have something in my history.
That is awesome that Podman's on there.
Yeah, so there, I just did a Podman run with a UBI 9 container, echoing, hello from Red Hat. This isn't very sexy right here, but let's get to, we can get to the part where it is pretty neat, right?
So
but again,
before
it's
you move
about
on,
consistency.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was gonna say before you move on though, can you do like a Podman images and like a Podman? I'm just curious, but if everything looks and feels, that is so crazy.
Yeah. Well, and here's another. I'll give a little tidbit too here. So look, I resolved UBI 8. It's coming up. There's my registries comp and everything else. I can control that as an organization. I can say, so like we're pulling from Red Hat Registry, which is fine because Red Hat Registry is super secure and everything out there is great. But let's say you don't want to do that. Let's say you only want to pull from your organization's registries. You can control that at the CHE level, right? At that cluster level, and you can do it in multiple ways, right? Because security is about layers. It's not about a single solution. So I can put constraints in there to say, hey, these are the only registries you can get to. These are also all running on the same OpenShift cluster, which I can control the egress networking from. So I can put a firewall in between the egress from my clusters and put whitelists or, no-go lists on anything that I want to from an organizational standpoint for all my developers all at the same time, right? That is the ultimate kind of power of being able to quickly and easily mitigate possible security risks or stopping bad behavior, right? You can just nip it at the network, right? Which is always a fun thing to do. So we talked about that for a second. Let's do a little bit of a dive into the API Explorer here real quick. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the cluster configuration for the CHE cluster. Projects, instances. So there's our dev spaces configuration. Let's take a quick look at this, just for fun. So here's the one thing that you'll look at. So here's an example of something that's really cool. So there's my plugin registry. My VS Code plugins that are available here, those aren't coming from the internets. We don't want those coming from the internet. We want those coming from our curated, trusted, secure set of plugins that we want our development teams to use. Want to control that? There you go. You can run your own plugin registry inside your organization, just like you'd run your own, Artifactory or whatever, artifact registry you have. You can have your own plugin registry, and you can limit it there. You can limit what Git services you can connect to, right? So you can put your Git services in there. You can so there's a lot of restrictions and things here. Container run configurations. You can put default container resources so that people aren't blowing up and making huge workspaces. There's a lot of different controls here that you can put in. And the other thing is like, you can get things to auto idle, right? So if somebody's not using something, it turns off, right? And that's cool. Saving, stuff on the cluster, right? So there's a lot of value there.
How heavy is this from a resource perspective? Like when you're running a dev space, right? Is it pretty like resource intensive, or is it just man?
Let's go look. So
the nerd in me is going crazy right now thinking about all the things.
Yeah, 2 gigs, less than a CPU.
Nice. For some reason, it didn't
Right?
render on
So-
the okay, there it goes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Did it take a second?
It did. It's good now.
Yeah. 2 gigs. Less than a CPU. Less than half a CPU. Right? Now, when we start running some stuff, it'll speed up and things like that. But yeah, this is about consistency, and we'll get into some development here, and we'll talk about it. So we covered the networking, talked about the plugins. We talked about the integrated ID, the integrated AI, right? Yeah, because that AI, I use it every day now. I use AI every day. We have our own approved AI workflows and things like that. So it's changed the way that I do development. It's changed the way that I do pretty much everything in my professional job. So if you're not using AI, you're going to get left behind here pretty quick. And it's not about replacing jobs. There is some fear there. I think for the next 5 or 10 years, it's really going to be the winners and losers are going to be the ones who can use the tools in the proper way and be able to get those tools out to the people that need those tools to become more productive, right? But again, it's like anything else. Every time a new automation framework came out or something like that was going to automate away all these jobs. I remember the sysadmins being scared. Basically, like every time Chef came out or Puppet or whatever came out, they were like, "Oh, we're going to be able to run." Those jobs just moved to other places where they needed attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been that way in technology for the entirety of technology. So, keep on going. Everybody will be okay. So dependency analytics. This is an interesting thing too. So what else do we want from a tool set standpoint? I'm a big person of like, I want tools in every place. I want it locally. I want it in my CI/CD pipeline, and I want it at runtime. So I want it in my clusters. So we have all those dependency analytics projects and things like that built right into this. So it takes a second to come up, but I went to open the Red Hat dependency analytics reports. That's a plugin that comes into here and will give you immediate feedback locally in your environment as you're doing development of like, hey, these are the dependency analytics that are. It takes a second because it's got to pull back all the data, but boom, there's all my CVEs, there's all my vulnerabilities. I can click through all of these things.
That is cool.
What's really cool, like the report's fine. What's really cool is the red thing, and it immediately tells you what it is, and you're like, okay, let's get rid of that. Cool. So there's that. Yeah. So what we're going to do is also just, let's run it locally too. So remember my dev file? I had some tasks in there. I can do the same thing here. So I'm going to run a task for a dev file and boom, there's all my stuff. I'm going to start in development mode. If you're not familiar with Quarkus starts up and it integrates test containers in the middle of it. So remember the thing we were talking about Podman and Podman? That's now a solved problem, which is really neat. And one of the things you'll see here after we download the world from Maven here in a second. See, it's starting my Kafka dev services in the background. It's pulling my images for the, I think it's using Red Panda for a test Kafka framework. But it automatically detected, hey, you need a Postgres and you need a Kafka dev service that's running. So now in the background, I have Podman running with my Red Panda, which is running my Kafka, and Postgres. So when I'm doing development, and I'm doing development locally, or if I'm building tests or anything else, right? those are running against real time, real environments. That isn't, so I'm not having to write a mock test for everything. And that's, you heard the disdain in my voice. I hate writing mock tests. I don't feel like they're, if it's the only thing you can do, okay, do it, because you have to do it. You have to write tests, right? But if you can give your developers the ability to run and build end-to-end integration tests in lieu of writing all of those other kind of mock integration tests, it's going to supercharge your development cycle, because now I don't have to worry about, does this work against a Postgres database? Because it's running against a Postgres database. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let me ask you this: like, okay, keep going, because I have a question that'll be, it's not really the right place for this, but I've written it down so I won't forget.
Okay. So, and here's my local environment. Again, this is running in a container in OpenShift. So I can go in here. Let's go change something real quick. Let's go change my dashboard from dashboard to dashboard 1. I click save. I come out here and I click refresh, and you saw it becomes dashboard 1. What happened there? It actually restarted the entire thing. It noticed the change. So this is where we originally started. It noticed the change. It stopped it. It reloaded just what it needed to reload, and it restarted the entire environment in what? 2 seconds? 1 second?
That's awesome.
Right? So I'm going through as a developer and I'm saying, hey, I'm going to go, build a new whatever. I can add in a resource here. So I can add it in claim stat resource .java. I'm doing a little a cooking show. I have some pre-canned type of stuff, and I just added it. It reloaded it, and so if I go back here and I say API, is it claim stats? Yeah, claim stats. Boom, it's there, right? I haven't had to restart anything. I haven't had to stop anything. Nothing's running locally. It's all running on the cluster. So again, I don't have to buy 4,000 developers, big honking laptops. I can get them lighter weight notebooks that just need to connect to the internet.
That is dope. The Podman thing is blowing my mind.
Yeah, the Podman thing's a neat bit of special sauce. So, but yeah, it changes the way that you're doing. It changes from as an application developer. Test containers has been one of the most inventive value add things to the testing ecosystem in the past 5 or 10 years. It's just absolutely fantastic. And to have it all connected in here is just great.
So one question I have, and it's more of a dumb question than anything. I think it's probably a dumb question, but like, so there's dev spaces and then there's dev workspaces, right? Are they
dev
are
spaces
they the
is
same
like dev workspaces? Yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay. That was my question. I was like, are they different or are they okay? But that makes sense.
Nope, they're the same. Okay, let's jump because we're running a little.
Oh.
Red Hat Developer. So what is this? So I kind of showed you the dev spaces view of it. I showed you how neat dev spaces is, how much value you can get from just ecosystem, from like building these things en masse for your development teams, and they don't have to worry about it, right? They can build their own team. Also, if you want to work remotely too, it's in the works now. I'm not sure if it's GA or yet, but there is going to be a remote development environment option where you're running your IDE on your laptop, but connecting back to the server. It's going to be super cool, but we won't talk about that right now. Let's talk about what it looks like from
Hey, Steve.
a full. Yes.
So something happened with Restream and it disconnected you, and I brought you back in, but your audio sounds like you're a little underwater. Can you check your audio really quick?
Uh-oh. Let's see.
Actually, and as soon as I said something, it sounds way better. So.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, proximity fix.
I had to switch over from my thing to my actual mic. Okay, let's plug in here real quick. We're going to show a different way to do this. I forgot my password. Where's my password? There it is. Sorry. Cooking show. So this is a different way of looking at things, right? And this is Developer Hub. Developer Hub is that ability to be able to have this single pane of glass. I know people love to say single pane of glass. This is the closest the industry's come to it. And at least this brings everything together. There's a lot of stuff that's in here that is truly single pane of glass. So if you're coming in here and we have, a specific application, so this is an example of one of the applications that we have, you can go up here to all these plugins and you can see what's happening, right? So I have my topology built in, my topology view from OpenShift, that's built in. I can go in and look at my CI/CD pipelines. I can look at my built-in plugin for Argo CD and see where that is. My Kubernetes plugin. So all that's there. If you notice, we're degraded here. We haven't run a pipe yet, so we're gonna open up this real quick. We're gonna get a pipeline run real quick. You'll notice it's grabbing the dev file and building out the workspace.
Oh, that's cool. And this is what you were talking about early on about having a developer platform, right? Like if you don't have a tool like this, and you're doing it 100 different ways across 40 different teams, right?
Yep. And okay, so side story. I'm full of anecdotes. I've been doing this for a long time. When I was a developer, and when I was in consulting, especially, I don't think I walked into a customer and was productive ever on day one. I was always walking into a customer and they're like, or a client, and they were like, welcome, great to have you, project kickoff. You may get your laptop this week. It might be next. And I would be stuck reading Word documents, sitting at a table, reading Word documents that other people are printing out because they wouldn't have my credentials. I wouldn't have a laptop, anything like that. This stuff is a game changer. This stuff is like, boom. All you got to do is put the credentials in. The developer walks in. The consultant walks in. They have a development environment ready to go, pre-configured to meet the team specs like day one, and they're ready to go, right? Or if you have, any kind of like offshore teams, this is great with that as well, right? So you don't have to ship hardware everywhere and things like that. If they have an internet connection and a browser, they're good to go. So we opened up dev spaces. Let's go take out that Quarkus REST thing that was giving us problems. We're going to do that. I'm going to check on my Git real quick. It's going to take a second. I'm going to do what everybody does and do a fantastic, very, very informational commit.
Fix stuff.
That out. Yeah. So you'll see here, you can go back to, so we're back in DevHub, and boom, there's our pipeline running, right? So you can sit there from the same kind of single pane of glass and see everything that's running. This pipeline is going to do quite a few different things. So the first thing is we're doing the basic blocking and tackling. Everybody, this task for clone source should be the same for everybody. Maven build should be the same for everybody. Build and push should be the same for everybody. And then the image scanning, the image checking, all of this stuff should be the same for everybody. So we're going to do image scanning. We're going to generate an SBOM. This build and push is actually the attestations and things like that. So we'll be doing the cryptographic signing as part of this as well. As this is running, I want to go over real quick and kind of show what this looks like. So you can build your own templates, your software templates. And we have one that's built here called Parasol Insurance Secure Development. All this is another Git repo with a bunch of templated stuff in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that as the template, and we're going to spin up a second instance of this. Now watch what this is doing. So it's creating the source branch, right? So it's reaching back into GitLab and it's going to go do that. It's fetching the skeleton. It's publishing to GitLab, a different, in a different branch and things like that. But notice it created the Argo CD resources. It registered the component. It did everything that we needed to do. So if you go look at like the GitOps repository, so here's the GitOps repo that it created that came from the skeleton. All of this stuff is now very ubiquitous and homogeneous across all of your teams because it's running these generalized set of development pipelines that allows your teams to not worry about it. God, I do not want to have to go through and rebuild this stuff over and over and over. My template does it for me. But the second thing is every single time you let a template do it, the template's going to do it the exact same way because computers are really, really good about doing things the same way. Do you know who's really, really bad about doing things the same way? Humans.
This guy.
We're not good at that. We're not good at that. We always come up with new and inventive ways, or I get bored and I'm going to do it a different way just to do it differently. And it just doesn't work. And especially across, this is like one project. Imagine doing this at scale across 40 different development teams in three geographic locations with 7 different lines of businesses, all with different priorities and different bosses. This is a game changer, right?
Yeah.
This is the type of stuff where you go in and you're like, hey, we're not going to have huge differences in an operations standpoint, because the funny thing about it is like all of those lines of business all have their own stuff, but a lot of the times they have shared operations teams that are stuck with the stuff that gets thrown over the wall, and it's all different. And it's like, oh, we all did it differently and in different ways. And oh, that's fun from an operational standpoint. Chasing down, Sev 1 outages and having to look up to figure out why this team did this in a particular way. But PTSD aside, here's let's go back to the pipeline real quick that I was just running. So back to the catalog, the feature one that I was just running. My CI pipeline should be running. Here it is. So it's still running. Finish the build. This one, I believe, did all of the digests. It built the container image and pushed it out. Did my ACS image scan. So there's all my CVEs. Those are actually all going to be plugged into that pipeline. So if you end up looking at this thing's going to populate right here. This vulnerabilities is going to populate. It's generating the SBOM. This always takes a minute because this has to go through and build. It kind of has to do like a recursive walk, which if you say recursion, it takes forever. But it's using Cyclone DX on the back end or whatever. Well, we're going to upload all that stuff.
And with Developer Hub, like I know when we first started pushing Developer Hub, it was like backstage raw basically, and there was no real ability to add like your own plugin, and no easy way to add your own plugins, right? You had to rebuild the application. It was actually very, it was difficult. It was a pain in the butt. I'm trying to do it without cussing, but
Yes.
and now you can build your own plugins, and then you can actually add them in, and it's pretty much like a config where you just point to where the plugins live, right? And then you can add your plugin into that directory or config map or whatever, and then rebuild it, and it's available, right?
It is a dynamic plugin system, and there's no rebuilding. Yes. So that was
Nice.
one of the very first things so back in the day when we started this whole effort, that was one of the very first things that Red Hat looked at the ecosystem and goes, every single time I have to add a plugin, I have to recompile the entire. Oh, geez, that's that's not going to work. So they went through, and that's what that midstream project is about. We donated those enhancements back up to Backstage. I don't know if they're completely incorporated yet, but yeah, I believe there are plans that those enhancements are coming back to the upstream, because that's the way we roll. I was at a conference. I was like an internal conference last week, and they brought up a slide on the statistics about like how much Red Hat contributes back to these upstream communities in terms of lines of code and stuff like that. And honestly, we blow everybody away, right? In terms of the number of lines, the number of commits, the amount of value that we push back into the upstream, that honestly a lot of our competitors just take the value of the product, our engineering, and then turn around and use it. But that's that sometimes happens in OpenShift, in the world of open source. So
Open source, baby. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's all of our vulnerabilities. These buttons over here, you can view the logs. You can view your SBOM if you want to, so you can pop that open. You can also, just kind of view the output of the report. So like, here's our ACS with all of our issues, right? That's all plugged in, right? So it's kind of has that single pane of glass that allows you to be able to do all that stuff. But it all came back to, hey, I'm just a developer running in my little workspace over here, and all I got to do is do my feature requests, push and pull, run the pipeline, and all the platform engineers. I'm standing on the shoulders of all their, all of their work down there. So that's what we're talking about when we say platform engineering and shifting down.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm glad to see Red Hat Developer Hub has progressed as much as it has, because when it first came out, I was like, this ain't for me. So it's like I'm glad to see that it's gotten a lot better. And then DevSpace is something I'm definitely going to look into, because I've looked into it before, but I don't know if the Podman and Podman was a reality yet. And I was like, it fits the bill for a lot of things, but it didn't do everything. And now that Podman's there, that kind of changes things.
Well, and of course, AI's in this as well. So, right. So we're plugged into developer Lightspeed. We're using one of our own AI models in the back end. But again, the model is pluggable. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So list all the components for me, please. Always say please. You always have to say please.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then this starts giving you that capability to go through and provide all the answers for you in a text manner. So there's all of our APIs, and then there's another little trick, which is around being able to do example code and things like that. So you can go into, I'm trying to find the blurb for it, because the blurb is me see if I can find it. Anyway, if you can get in here and you can say, I think I had a, oh yeah, here it is. Here's the, go back to the other chat and say, tell me about this API in the catalog, and then, write some Java code to access it. So I can get in, I can see, oh, it's not finding that API. Anyway, but it can get in there and it can find things and it can create code snippets and things like that. So as a developer, I can go and find somebody else's API that's in the catalog and say, hey, not only what is this API all about, but I can get Lightspeed to do some of the heavy lifting for me in terms of how in the world do I use this thing?
Yeah.
Which is nice. So that is it that I have for today. I'm going to leave us with the call to action. We do have, of course, if you want to see this stuff in action from a demo standpoint, if you're an OpenShift customer, reach out to your Red Hat sales, account executive, or your, account solution architect, or anybody on the Red Hat team. To be honest with you, talk to them and say, hey, I want to learn more about Advanced Developer Suite. Our consulting team also delivers this fantastic developer experience assessment where we come on in like a 2-week interactive workshop and we bring your development teams together and we help not only drive the assessment for how do you get your platform engineering efforts into high-speed mode, but we also kind of help bring some engineering muscle to the table as well. All the tools, by the way, that we're kind of showing off here, this is our own champagne, right? Like we're all drinking our own champagne here. These are the tools that our development teams internally at Red Hat use. So we can bring a lot of engineering expertise to the table to help your organization with that as well. And then last but not least, I got out of the roadshow. Sorry. Last but not least, we got some roadshows that are coming up, right? So platform engineering roadshows, click on the links, security roadshow, of course, and then app platform things. I know I run these workshops both virtually and in person, and they're always done really, really well. So.
Yeah, awesome, great job. Yeah, and for the links to the roadshows, what I'll do is I'll update the YouTube oh my gosh, thumbnails, descriptions, video descriptions. Wow, that was really hard to say. And I'll put the links in there so that way everybody has them. I also shared on Twitch a link to the Dev Spaces page on the OpenShift on the developers website, which it'll take you to a sandbox environment. So if you want to go through a learning path, do a lab, mess with Dev Spaces, and do stuff like that too, that stuff is also out there and free of charge as long as you have a developer account. And so again, to reiterate, if you don't have a developer account or a subscription, you should. It's free. 16 free nodes of OpenShift or RHEL or whatever you want to do. But it's the reason you should. There's no reason why you shouldn't have it. If you are trying to learn OpenShift or work on OpenShift, obviously it's like a development environment or a non-production environment that's really meant for you. But yeah, it's totally worth it, and you get access to all kinds of content and things like that. So there's no reason to not have one. Steve, thank you so much for coming on, man. Like I really appreciate it. The talk was great. The demo was great. I'm actually very excited about Dev Spaces, and I really want to go kick the tires on it now and see if it can do what I was hoping it would do a year ago.
I'm excited about the whole ecosystem. I think this is a great place where Red Hat can get plugged in and start providing value to our customers in new and exciting ways. And I look forward to having more conversations. So thanks for having me on. And I wish everybody out there, a happy Wednesday.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And to those that are watching, the chat has been messed up the entire time. So I've tried to reply in Twitch, but if you sent a question, I didn't see it. So just if there's a question that you want answered, just feel free to shoot me an email. Again, we're coming up with the topic for next week. And then on the 29th, we have Peter Kreuzer and their team coming back. So we will get it figured out. All right. See you.